Dad gambled away my college fund, then told everyone I was too stupid for college anyway. Got full scholarship, became a lawyer, now representing mom in their divorce. He was right. I'm too stupid to forgive. Hey Reddit. So my dad gambled away my entire college fund, then had the balls to tell everyone I was too stupid for college anyway. Now I'm representing my mom in their divorce as her lawyer, and watching him realize exactly how stupid I really am. Grab some popcorn, because this revenge has been marinating for 12 years. I'm 28 now, but this story starts when I was 16. Back then, I was your typical high school kid. Decent grades, played some sports, had my whole life ahead of me. My parents had been telling me since I was little that they'd been saving for my college since the day I was born. It wasn't going to be full ride money or anything, but enough to cover most of state school without drowning in loans. That fund was supposed to be my ticket out, my shot at something better. My dad worked as a regional manager for this logistics company. Made decent money, nothing crazy, but combined with my mom's teaching salary, we were comfortable middle class. Nice suburban house, 2 cars in the driveway, family vacations once a year. You know the drill. The American dream, or whatever they're calling it these days. Dad always had this thing about being the big shot, though. Always talking about his glory days playing college football, always had to be the guy buying rounds for his buddies, always had to have the newest truck even when the old one worked fine. Mom would get on him about spending, and he'd wave her off, saying he had it under control. Spoiler alert, he did not have it under control. The gambling started small, or at least that's what Mom told me later. Fantasy football leagues with the guys from work, March Madness brackets, Super Bowl squares. Nothing too serious, just enough to make things interesting, as he called it. But here's the thing about gambling. It's like potato chips. Nobody stops at just one. By the time I was a sophomore in high school, Dad had discovered online sports betting. This was back before it was legal everywhere, so he was using these sketchy offshore sites. He'd sit in his home office after dinner, laptop open, watching 3 games at once on different screens. Mom thought he was working late, catching up on reports or whatever. Nah, he was betting on whether some college basketball team would cover the spread. I actually caught him once. Walked into his office without knocking. Needed help with calculus homework. He slammed that laptop shut so fast you'd think he was watching something way worse than basketball. Got all red in the face, started yelling about privacy and respect. Looking back, that should have been my first real clue. Something was off, but I was 15. What did I know? Junior year is when everything started falling apart, though I didn't know it yet. I was killing it in school. 3.8 GPA, decent SAT scores, president of the debate club, volunteer work at the food bank. Not Harvard material, but definitely good enough for state school with some scholarship money. I had my whole plan mapped out. Business degree, maybe law school if I kept my grades up. Make something of myself. My guidance counselor, Mrs. Peterson, was helping me with college applications. She kept telling me I had a real shot at some good schools, maybe even some partial academic scholarships. She'd pull up these spreadsheets showing tuition costs, and I'd always tell her not to worry too much about the money part. My parents had been saving. She'd give me this look like, must be nice, and move on to the next topic. One day I came home from school and found Mom crying at the kitchen table. Not like quiet tears either, full-on sobbing into a dish towel. Dad was nowhere to be found. When I asked what was wrong, she just shook her head and told me to go do my homework. But I knew. You know when you just know something bad is happening even if nobody's saying it? That was one of those moments. Turns out Dad had been chasing losses for months. You know how it goes. Bet $100. Lose. Bet $200 to win it back. Lose that too. Suddenly you're in for $1,000 and telling yourself the next bet is the winner. Except the next bet is never the winner. The house always wins. That's literally how they stay in business. He'd blown through his 401k first, cashed it out early, took the penalty, told Mom it was for a business investment opportunity with his buddy Steve. There was no Steve. Then he took out a home equity line of credit, told Mom it was for renovations we never did. Finally, when he'd burned through all that, he went after my college fund. $62,000. That's how much was in that account when he started. 17 years of birthday money, Christmas checks from Grandma, monthly deposits from my parents' paychecks. Gone in 4 months. 4 months. This man literally YOLO'd my entire future on whether the Patriots would cover the spread. Mom found out when she tried to make the quarterly deposit and discovered the account had been closed. When she confronted him, he actually tried to play it off at first. Said he moved it to a better investment vehicle with higher returns. Mom's not stupid, though. She kept pushing until he finally cracked and admitted everything. The fight that followed was epic. I'm talking dishes thrown, neighbors calling to check if everything was okay, the whole 9 yards. Dad spent that night at a motel. I spent it lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, watching my entire future evaporate because my father couldn't stop clicking buttons on his phone. Here's where it gets really messed up, though. Instead of manning up and admitting what he'd done, Dad went on the offensive. Started telling everyone, family, friends, neighbors, that he and Mom had decided not to pay for my college because my grades weren't good enough to justify the investment. Said I was barely passing, that I'd probably drop out anyway, that trade school would be better for someone like me. My uncle called me one day, offering to help me look into electrician apprenticeships because your dad says college isn't really your thing. My grandmother sent me a check for $500 with a note saying, "For wherever life takes you," like I was some kind of lost cause. Even kids at school started hearing about it through the parent gossip network. I went from college-bound honor student to that kid whose parents think he's too dumb for college, basically overnight. The humiliation was unbearable. Teachers who used to praise my work started looking at me with pity. My girlfriend's parents suddenly didn't think I was such a good match for their daughter anymore. Friends started making plans for college without including me in the conversation, like I'd already been written off. I confronted Dad about the lies one night, just him and me in the garage. I was shaking with rage, fists clenched, probably the angriest I'd ever been in my life. And you know what he said? He looked me dead in the eye and said, "What's better, son? People thinking you're not college material, or knowing your father's a failure who stole your future? At least this way you keep some dignity." That's when I realized something important. My father was a coward. A pathetic, selfish coward who'd rather destroy his son's reputation than admit his own failures. And cowards? Cowards always get what's coming to them. It just takes time. I made a decision that night. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to cry. I wasn't going to give him the satisfaction of breaking me. Instead, I was going to prove everyone wrong. And when I did, I was going to make sure Dad felt every ounce of the humiliation he'd put me through. Started applying for every scholarship known to man. Academic scholarships, need-based aid, essay contests, you name it. I wrote approximately 7 million essays about overcoming adversity and the importance of education. Mrs. Peterson, God bless her, helped me with everything even though she was confused about why my college fund had suddenly vanished. I got waitlisted at state, rejected from 2 other schools. Started thinking maybe I really was screwed. Then, 2 weeks before graduation, I got a letter from Westfield University. Full academic scholarship, room and board included. They'd been impressed by my essay about financial obstacles to education and my demonstrated academic excellence, despite lack of family support. When I showed Mom the letter, she broke down crying again, but happy tears this time. Dad just stood there, mouth opening and closing like a fish, trying to process what he was seeing. He actually had the nerve to say, "Well, that's great, son. I knew you'd figure something out." I just looked at him and walked away. Didn't trust myself to say anything that wouldn't end with me putting my fist through the wall. The extended family was shocked when they found out. Dad had spent months telling them I wasn't college material, and suddenly, I had a full scholarship to a better school than any of my cousins attended. The narrative changed real quick. Dad tried to take credit, saying he'd been practicing tough love to motivate me. Nobody really bought it, but they pretended to because that's what families do. Enable the narcissist to save face. College was my escape. 4 hours away, far enough that I didn't have to come home except for major holidays. Threw myself into my studies like my life depended on it. Because honestly, it did. Pre-law track, political science major, 3.9 GPA. Made law review, mock trial team, the whole deal. Every A on my transcript was a middle finger to everyone who'd written me off. Mom and I stayed close. She'd drive up once a month to take me to lunch, always alone. She'd slip me a couple $100 for expenses, even though my scholarship covered everything. We never talked about Dad during these visits. It was like he didn't exist for those few hours. And that was exactly how we both wanted it. Meanwhile, Dad was spiraling. Without Mom supervising the finances, his gambling got worse. Started borrowing money from his brother, his friends, anyone who'd listened to his stories about a sure thing coming up. Mom had separated their bank accounts after the college fund incident, so at least he couldn't drain her teacher's pension. Law school was next. Killed the LSAT, got into a T14 school with another hefty scholarship. Dad actually tried to reconcile when he found out, suddenly interested in his successful son. Showed up at my college graduation with this big smile, telling everyone within earshot about my boy, the future lawyer. I let him have his moment, but I didn't forget. I never forgot. The thing about law school is that it teaches you to think strategically. Every case is a chess match, and you learn to think 5 moves ahead. I specialized in family law, which my professors thought was weird, given my academic stats. Most of the top students went corporate or criminal. But I had my reasons. Graduated law school at 25, passed the bar on my first try, and joined a mid-sized firm back in my hometown. Mom was thrilled to have me close again. Dad acted like we were buddies, like the past never happened. Started introducing me to people as his lawyer son, like he'd been supportive all along. I played along, smiled, shook hands, and waited. See, here's what Dad didn't know. Mom had been documenting everything for years. Every gambling loss, every lie, every time money went missing from their joint accounts before she separated them. She'd hired a forensic accountant to trace where the money went. She had screenshots of his betting accounts, credit card statements showing cash advances at casinos, the works. She'd also been seeing someone else for about 2 years. A nice guy named Richard from her school, taught history, treated her like gold. She'd wanted to file for divorce earlier but was waiting for the right moment. That moment came when I called her and said, "Mom, I passed the bar. Let me handle your divorce." Dad got served papers at work. His coworkers saw the whole thing. Process server walking in, asking for him by name, handing over the envelope in front of everyone. Mom had asked me if that was necessary, and I said yes. Yes, it was absolutely necessary. When he called me screaming about it, I calmly informed him that I was representing Mom and all communication needed to go through me now. The silence on the other end was beautiful. You could actually hear the moment his brain processed what was happening. His son, the one he'd called too stupid for college, was now his wife's divorce attorney. The divorce proceedings have been educational for Dad. Remember all those financial documents Mom saved? They painted a very clear picture of marital asset dissipation. That's legal speak for you can't gamble away marital property and get away with it. The judge was not impressed by Dad's explanations. The house? Mom's keeping it. The forensic accountant proved Dad had gambled away roughly $200,000 over the course of their marriage, including my college fund. In our state, that kind of financial misconduct means the innocent spouse gets compensated from the other party's share of marital assets. Dad's walking away with his truck and about $30,000. That's it. His retirement accounts? Already decimated from his gambling, and what's left is getting split with heavy favor toward Mom due to the dissipation. He'll be working until he's 75 at least, assuming he can keep his job after everyone finds out why his wife left him. Speaking of which, small towns love gossip, and divorce filings are public record. Amazing how fast word spreads when someone files documents showing their spouse gambled away their kid's college fund, then lied about it. Dad's reputation as the successful businessman and family man? Gone. Now he's the guy who stole from his own son to feed his gambling addiction. The best part happened during the deposition. Dad's lawyer asked me if I had any bias given my relationship to the parties. I responded, well, he did steal my college fund and tell everyone I was too stupid for higher education. But I'm sitting here as a licensed attorney, so clearly his assessment of my intelligence was flawed. If anything, I think I'm uniquely qualified to ensure a fair outcome, given my intimate knowledge of the respondent's pattern of deception. Dad's lawyer objected, but the court reporter had already typed it all out. That's going in the permanent record, forever. We had a settlement conference last week. Dad tried to pull me aside afterward, gave me this whole speech about family and forgiveness, how I was breaking my mother's heart by turning her against him. I let him finish, then said, "You know what, Dad? You were right about one thing. I am too stupid. Too stupid to let you manipulate me anymore. And definitely too stupid to forgive someone who chose gambling over his son's future." His face went through about 15 different emotions. Anger, shame, regret, more anger. Finally, he whispered, "I'm still your father. Biologically? Sure. But you stopped being my dad the day you decided your gambling addiction was more important than my education. Now you're just opposing counsel's client. And based on the evidence we've compiled, you're about to be a very poor one. Mom's divorce should be finalized in about 3 months. She's already planning her wedding to Richard for next spring. She asked if I'd walk her down the aisle since her father passed years ago. I said yes immediately. Dad won't be invited, obviously. As for Dad, last I heard, he was living in a 1-bedroom apartment on the wrong side of town, still betting on sports with money he doesn't have. Some people never learn, but his bookie doesn't accept "my son is too stupid for college" as collateral. So at least there's that. The universe has a funny way of balancing things out. Dad stole my college fund and tried to destroy my future to cover his tracks. Now I'm a successful attorney with 0 student debt, while he's pushing 60 with nothing to show for it but a gambling addiction and a reputation in ruins. He was right about me being too stupid, though. Too stupid to feel sorry for him, too stupid to give him another chance, and way too stupid to ever trust him again. But hey, at least this stupid kid managed to become a lawyer and ensure his mother got everything she deserved in the divorce. Funny how sometimes the best revenge isn't some elaborate scheme. Sometimes it's just becoming everything they said you couldn't be, then using those very skills to hold them accountable for their actions. Dad gambled on me failing, and for once in his life, he was right about the odds being against him. Oh, and that full scholarship I got? Turns out the selection committee was headed by a woman whose husband had gambled away their savings years earlier. She later told me my essay about overcoming financial obstacles, despite family members with gambling problems, really resonated with her. Sometimes the universe just lines things up perfectly. Mom's doing great now, by the way. She's happy with Richard, planning their honeymoon to Italy, something she always wanted to do, but Dad said was too expensive. Funny how there's money for trips when it's not being funneled into online sports books. My extended family has been real quiet lately. All those cousins who got told I wasn't college material? Yeah, they're watching me handle one of the most vicious divorces our town has seen in years, and doing it with surgical precision. My uncle, the one who wanted to help me find an electrician apprenticeship, he asked me last week if I could look over a contract for him. I told him my hourly rate. Family discount? Nah, that ended when they believed Dad's lies without even asking me for my side. The girlfriend whose parents thought I wasn't good enough? She reached out on social media recently, said she always knew I'd make something of myself. I left her on red. Some bridges are better left burned. Mrs. Peterson, though? I sent her a bottle of champagne when I passed the bar. She's retired now, but she sent me back the nicest card saying she always knew I'd prove everyone wrong. She never believed Dad's story about my grades, said she knew something else was going on, but didn't want to pry. Good people recognize other good people, I guess. The wildest part of all this? If Dad had just been honest from the beginning, things might have been different. If he'd admitted his mistake, gotten help for his gambling, worked to make things right, who knows? Maybe I would have forgiven him eventually. Maybe we could have rebuilt something. But he chose to lie, chose to throw me under the bus to save face, chose to destroy my reputation rather than admit his own failures. That's not something you come back from. That's not something you forgive. That's something you remember every time you're in court, fighting for another client whose spouse thought gambling was more important than family. I've handled about a dozen divorce cases now where gambling was a factor. Every time I see Dad in the respondent's chair. Every time I make sure the innocent spouse gets everything they're entitled to and then some. Call it therapeutic, call it vengeance, call it whatever you want. I call it justice. Dad sent me a birthday card last month. First contact since the settlement conference. Inside, he'd written, "I know I failed you as a father. I'm getting help for my problem. Maybe someday you can forgive me." I thought about responding. Thought about a lot of things I could say. In the end, I just filed it away with the rest of the divorce documents. Some things don't deserve a response. Some people don't deserve forgiveness. And sometimes the best closure is no closure at all. Just moving forward and leaving them in the past where they belong. So that's my story, Reddit. Dad gambled away my future, lied about it, tried to ruin my reputation, and thought he'd gotten away with it. Now he's broke, alone, and watching his ex-wife thrive while his son, the one he called too stupid for college, runs circles around him in court. You know what the real kicker is? If he'd taken that 62 grand and put it in an index fund instead of gambling it away, it'd be worth about $150,000 today. But hey, I'm apparently too stupid to understand investments, so what do I know? Let me tell you about the sweetest moment, though. During discovery, we found Dad's betting history from the past 10 years. Every single bet. This man kept detailed spreadsheets thinking he'd found a system. You know what his lifetime win rate was? 31%. He literally would have done better flipping a coin. But the best part? He had a note in one of his files that said, "When I hit big, setting aside $100,000 for each kid's college." He was so delusional, he thought he was gambling for us, not against us. The mediation was where things got really interesting. Dad brought his brother as emotional support, thinking family pressure might work on me. His brother, Uncle Tony, pulled me aside during a break and tried the whole blood is thicker than water speech. I pulled out my phone and showed him a screenshot of Dad's betting account from the week before. He'd lost another $2,000 he didn't have on college football. Uncle Tony went pale and didn't say another word the rest of the day. Dad's lawyer, by the way, was this old school guy named Patterson, who clearly took the case thinking it'd be a standard divorce. When he saw the mountain of evidence we'd compiled, bank statements, betting site records, depositions from 3 different bookies, yeah, we found them, and a particularly damning email where Dad admitted to his gambling buddy that he'd borrowed my college fund, Patterson actually pulled Dad aside and told him to take whatever deal we offered. But here's something that still makes me laugh. Dad tried to claim my success as a marital asset. His argument? Since he and Mom were married when I became a lawyer, my increased earning potential should be considered when dividing assets. The judge actually laughed, out loud, in court. Then she reminded Dad's lawyer that parents can't claim their adult children's accomplishments as property. The desperation was just chef's kiss perfect. You want to know the saddest part? Going through Dad's finances for the divorce revealed he'd actually won big exactly twice. Once for $45,000 and once for $30,000. Both times, instead of stopping, paying back what he'd stolen, maybe trying to fix things, he bet it all again within a week. The $45,000 win? Lost it all trying to double it on a sure-thing NFL playoff game. The $30,000? Gone in 3 days on some international soccer matches he knew nothing about. I had to depose his bookie. Yeah, we got him to testify in exchange for immunity from any potential charges. This guy, Tommy, looked like he stepped straight out of a mob movie, gold chains and everything. But you know what he said? He felt bad for me. Said he'd seen a lot of degenerate gamblers. But a guy stealing his kid's college money was a new low even for him. When your bookie thinks you're morally bankrupt, you've really hit bottom. During one of the court sessions, Dad tried to paint himself as a victim of addiction, which, okay, fair. Gambling addiction is real. But then he actually said, and I quote from the court transcript, "My son's success proves I didn't really harm anyone. He turned out fine without my help." I stood up right there in court and said, "Your Honor, may I respond to that?" The judge nodded. I said, "I succeeded despite him, not because of him. And turning out fine doesn't erase the theft, the lies, or the deliberate destruction of my reputation. A victim recovering from assault doesn't mean the assault didn't happen." The judge nodded and made a note. Dad's lawyer put his head in his hands. Mom actually smiled for the first time in the courtroom. Oh, and remember that girlfriend whose parents thought I wasn't good enough? Her name was Ashley. She's married now to some investment banker, living in the suburbs with 2.5 kids and a golden retriever. She messaged me after news of the divorce hit Facebook, saying she never believed what people said about me. I responded with a screenshot of her dad's Facebook post from 7 years ago, where he called me a dead-end kid with no future. Then I blocked her. Some people rewrite history when it's convenient. I keep receipts. The family dynamics have been fascinating to watch. Dad's side of the family split into 3 camps. The enablers who still think he just made mistakes, the realists who've cut him off, and the opportunists who are nice to me now that I'm a lawyer. Cousin Brad, who used to call me college dropout at family gatherings, even though I never dropped out, asked me to help with his DUI last month. I quoted him double my usual rate. He went with another lawyer. Grandma on Dad's side passed away last year. At the funeral, Dad tried to use the occasion to corner me, going on about how Grandma would want us to reconcile. What he didn't know? Grandma had already written him out of her will after finding out about the gambling. She left his portion to me instead, with a note saying she was making right what my son made wrong. It wasn't much, about $15,000, but I donated it to a scholarship fund for kids whose parents have gambling addictions. The fund's named after Grandma, not Dad. The real kicker came when I found out Dad had been telling people at his GA meetings, yeah, he finally started going, but only after the divorce was filed, that I was being vindictive and kicking him while he was down. One of the guys from his group actually reached out to me on LinkedIn, trying to mediate. I sent him the full case file. He apologized and blocked Dad on everything. Here's something nobody talks about when your parent screws you over this badly: the collateral damage. I've got trust issues that make Fort Knox look accessible. Takes me forever to let anyone close, because I keep waiting for them to reveal some horrible secret. Therapy helps, but knowing your own father chose gambling over your future leaves marks that don't just fade away. I dated a girl in law school, Sarah, really great person. Smart, funny, came from a normal family where parents actually supported their kids. She couldn't understand why I kept everything separate. Separate bank accounts, wouldn't co-sign anything, kept meticulous records of every expense. When she met Dad at graduation and he did his proud father act, she bought it completely. Told me later I was too hard on him. We broke up 2 weeks later. Can't be with someone who falls for the same act that fooled everyone else. The bar exam? I studied for that like my life depended on it because, in a way, it did. It wasn't just about becoming a lawyer. It was about becoming undeniable proof that Dad was wrong. Every practice test, every late night, every flashcard was a brick in the wall between who he said I was and who I actually am. When I got the results, passed first try, scored in the 85th percentile, I didn't even tell him. Let him find out from Facebook like everyone else. My first case as a licensed attorney? Divorce where the husband had gambled away their retirement savings. I won her everything. House, cars, full retirement from his pension, plus alimony. The look on that man's face when he realized he destroyed his life for nothing? That's when I knew family law was my calling. I've become the boogeyman for gambling addicts in divorce court. Good. Mom's teaching career flourished after she left Dad. Turns out, when you're not constantly stressed about your husband's gambling, you can focus on your job. She won Teacher of the Year last year. Richard was there cheering her on. Dad found out from the newspaper. He actually had the audacity to post on Facebook congratulating her, like he had anything to do with her success. Mom blocked him that same day. You know what's funny? If you'd asked me at 16 what I wanted to be, lawyer wasn't even on the list. I wanted to be an engineer, build things, create something tangible. But Dad's betrayal pushed me toward law, toward learning how to fight with words and evidence instead of fists. In trying to destroy my future, he accidentally created the exact person capable of destroying his. The house Mom kept? It's worth double what they paid for it now. She's sitting on a gold mine, while Dad rents a place where the neighbors play music too loud and the parking lot floods every time it rains. She sent me a picture of her new garden last week. Richard helped her build raised beds, something she'd wanted for years, but Dad always said was a waste of money. Funny how there's money for things when it's not disappearing into online casinos. The extended family reunions are awkward now, not gonna lie. Last Christmas, I showed up for exactly 1 hour, gave Mom her gift, acknowledged Richard, ignored Dad completely, and left. Aunt Karen tried to guilt trip me about family forgiveness. I asked her if she'd forgive someone who stole $62,000 from her kid, then lied about it to everyone. She shut up real quick. Here's the thing about forgiveness that people don't get. It's not mandatory. Some things are unforgivable, and that's okay. I'm not carrying around anger anymore. I'm not plotting revenge or hoping Dad suffers. I'm just done. He's a stranger who happens to share some DNA with me. Nothing more, nothing less. The best part? My success is forever tied to his failure. Every case I win, every client I help, every dollar I earn is a reminder that his assessment of my intelligence was wrong. He can't escape it. When people Google him, my cases come up. When he applies for jobs, they find the divorce records. When he tries to date, they discover what he did. He created his own prison, and I just happened to become the warden. Richard, Mom's new husband. He's everything Dad wasn't. Steady job as a history teacher, responsible with money, actually shows up for things. He asked my permission before proposing to Mom, which he didn't need to do, but the gesture meant something. He said he knew what Dad had put us through and wanted to make sure I was comfortable with him joining our family. That's what a real man does. Considers others, takes responsibility, builds trust. The wedding's going to be small, just family and close friends. Dad won't be there, obviously, but his absence won't even be noticed because everyone who matters already knows why. Mom's walking herself down the aisle because she said, "I've been standing on my own 2 feet for years now. Might as well make it official." Richard's not trying to be my dad, and I appreciate that. He's just a good guy who makes my mom happy, and that's enough. The financial forensics we did for the divorce revealed something else interesting. Dad had taken out credit cards in Mom's name without telling her. 3 of them, maxed out, all for cash advances that went straight to gambling sites. Identity theft, technically. We could have pursued criminal charges, but Mom decided the divorce was enough punishment. Plus, criminal charges would have made it harder for him to pay the settlement. Sometimes, you gotta be practical about your revenge. My office is downtown, in one of those converted historic buildings with exposed brick and high ceilings. Dad has to drive past it every day on his way to work. I made sure my name is on the directory by the front door in big, bold letters. Attorney at law, right underneath. Every morning, he gets a reminder of what I became despite him. It's petty, sure, but after everything he put me through, I've earned a little pettiness. Dad tried to friend me on social media with a new account last month. The profile picture was from when I was 8, both of us at a baseball game, smiling. Before the gambling, before the lies, before everything went to hell. I stared at that friend request for a long time, remembering the dad who taught me to ride a bike, who came to my Little League games, who used to be my hero. Then I hit decline and blocked the account. That man in the picture doesn't exist anymore. Maybe never really did. Last week, something wild happened. I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. Usually, I let those go to voicemail. But something made me answer. It was a woman named Patricia, Dad's ex-girlfriend from before he met Mom. She'd heard about the divorce through the small-town grapevine and wanted to tell me something. Turns out, Dad had pulled the same stuff with her back in the day. She'd saved up $20,000 to start a small business, a bakery she dreamed about since she was a kid. Dad convinced her to let him invest it for better returns. 3 months later, it was gone. All of it. Lost on horse races and boxing matches. She left him immediately, but the damage was done. Her dream died that day. She never opened that bakery. Instead, she moved 2 states away, started over, became an accountant. She said hearing about what he did to me brought it all back, but also gave her some closure knowing it wasn't her fault. Some people are just broken, she said, and they break everyone around them if you let them get too close. That conversation hit different. It made me realize Dad's pattern went back decades. How many other people had he hurt? How many dreams had he destroyed before mine? Mom wasn't his first victim, and I wasn't his last. We were just points on a timeline of destruction that probably started before I was even born. Guess being too stupid for college worked out pretty well for me after all. YouTube just dropped this new hype feature. If you're hooked on this story, smash that hype button. It tells YouTube this video deserves to blow up, and it keeps even crazier stories coming your way.